Welcome everybody back to Rules of the Pit. And tonight we got a special guest straight out of Portland, Nick from Bridge City Sessions and Nightcore. Nick, welcome into the pit, and it's great to have
you. Yeah, thanks for having me.
So just we'll kick it off because I know we're gonna cover Nightcore and we're gonna cover Bridge City Sessions tonight. Why don't we start with Nightcore? Tell us a little bit about the band and the origins and stuff like that, and get us started on Nightcore.
Cool. Yeah. So through the pandemic, I had some songs that I was writing, and when the pandemic was kind of nearing its end, but kept evolving into other strains and whatnot, I started to get together with an old bandmate, Jeremy, who's the drummer, but he's actually like our lead guitar player on our recording, but it's hard to find a good drummer that's not in like 5 bands. So he decided to just get the band started. 1 guitar, I'll play guitar, Jeremy plays drums, and we got Trevor as a lead vocalist. He plays in another band called Throw and Unreal. I've known him for a long time, and I just thought he would be a great vocalist for this style of music. And so we've been really playing like as a full band for probably, I don't know, 6 to 8 months, something like that. But yeah, I had been writing this music and trying to evolve it into actual songs from just sending demos to our lead singer and then using like Easy Drummer for like drum tracks just to kind of get started. But that's kind of like that's how we got started.
Cool. So you guys are fairly fresh as a band then. You said you started around the pandemic. So with that whole pandemic happening, like how did you find coming together as a band? Really,
well, I knew the drummer for a long time, so we already knew we got along, and the singer Trevor, he and I have known each other a long time, get along, but we didn't really get to start playing this music together, like practicing weekly and all that, until this year, probably a few months before we did like a 5-day run. We like decided to start playing shows by a certain date, and then it was like crunch time. Okay, we have to get ready to play shows if we give ourselves this, like, we agreed to this tour, and our first show was like the week the tour started. So yeah, we had a few months to crunch. And our bass player that we originally had took on some other commitments. He also plays for 10 Foot Pole, but he lives in Portland, and he had to step out to take care of some commitments. And we got a buddy that practices here at the studio in another band. He plays guitar and he plays bass for us, and so it all just like worked out right in time. But yeah, when we first started, I would play with the drummer, here and there, and we would be wearing masks, and it was kind of hard to get together because everybody was kind of like, I don't want to be in a small room. And then we moved over to Bridge City. It's a lot bigger of a space. So
yeah, Bridge City, you probably have access to quite a few musicians if you need to pull somebody with having the studio next door and getting people through there.
Yeah, well, you would think it's so much easier, but it's really hard with like the algorithms and stuff. You share a post and looking for people, it's like, who knows how many people is going to see it. And that they live in Portland. It's like some of my favorite bands and musicians, they don't live in Portland. So we make a lot of connections with local bands, but you would think with so many musicians in Portland that it would be so much easier to find people. But when we needed to find a bass player, it was like, yeah, it was not easy.
It's like pulling teeth, huh?
Yeah.
God damn. I'm not too far from you, Nick. I live over in Cornelius. We just went last night and saw the Horror Pops and the Delta Bombers. That was a pretty damn cool show.
Awesome.
And, oh yeah, Bombers should have headlined, in my opinion.
Yeah, I haven't seen either one, but I've seen them on the flyers, and I've known of the Horror Pops for a long time, but just never seen them live.
They still got it.
I think I saw them on like a Epitaph comp or something. Like I bought some sort of like, maybe it was a Punkorama or something. And
Yes.
came
I
with
bought
the
the same
DVD.
one, dude. It had a bonus DVD in it with a bunch of music videos and stuff.
Back in
Yeah,
like 98 or 99.
Yes, Punkorama 10 is what it was, and had an unreleased song from The Offspring as well.
Was that the like neon green kind of colored? It doesn't matter, but yeah, I was trying to remember the cover in my head and like the DVD that came with it.
The Churchy's got the historian aspect behind him, so he'll know if anybody does.
If I don't know anything, I will defer to my girlfriend. She's like a wealth of punk knowledge. It's crazy. Megan knows so much shit.
I'm hoping to pick up the Horror Pops down here. They're opening for Alkaline Trio here in just a couple weeks. So
That would be
nice.
a dream show. It's like her two favorite bands. Damn.
good jump. So what's the direction for night? What's up next for Nightcore? You guys are playing some shows or what? Touring around Portland? Are you gonna go out of state?
So we did a 5-day run. We went to California and back, and Seattle. That was a lot of fun. But we have a couple of shows booked, like we have one tomorrow. It's going to be a live stream. We're going to have people in person too, but we're trying to raise money. So we're trying to make the most out of the last of the shows here. So we have a show tomorrow, and then we have a Halloween show at this place called the Mano Occulta, which is right next door to the new place that we're trying to rent for Bridge City Sessions. So playing a Halloween show there, and we have one in December as well at Blast Off Vintage, which is a place in Salem. So we have those shows, but in between and around that, we want to finish working on all of our pre-production for our next, because we put out just a 4-song EP, but we have like 11, 12 songs with a bunch of other songs that we're finishing up. So we want to focus on our next recording. So, we played a good handful of shows in a short amount of time, but we want to make sure we're, still progressing and not only focus on playing shows. So we're going to take a little break, work on the pre-production for the new record. We want to put out a full length, but we might put out like another EP or a split with a few other bands. But yeah, other than that, the main focus for me is just getting Bridge City Sessions into this new location, because that's our practice spot, that's our print shop, that's our session studio, and we have other tenants in our building too that we're trying to take with us. So there's a lot of work that's going to go into this new place. So kind of works out that after this month we kind of have like a good month of no shows and no obligations as a band to just work on the new location.
So let's get into Bridge City Sessions, and let's take it back for a minute for anybody who's watching who isn't familiar with what you've begun to build with Bridge City Sessions. What originally inspired you to start that up?
So my print shop used to have no walls in front of it, like making it a solid room. So when we first moved to the studio, we had none of these walls were here. It was just one huge open room, and we had a show like actually right behind me. It was Gentlemen Prefer Blood, 48 Thrills, Western Settings, and one more band I'm trying to think of, Fool's Rush. So there was a show here, and I had a drum cam set up, and I was just like filming by myself and just had the drum cam, and it was just such a fun time, and the aesthetic was awesome. And I was like, man, if we had some really good audio and, you know, some good video production, like this could be really cool. And Western Settings was here like on the 4th of December, something like that. And then they were coming back on the 9th of December, 2015. And in that time, I asked them if they'd be interested, and we kind of just set something up on the fly and did our first session with Western Settings and Gentlemen Prefer Blood. And I guess I was just inspired by like filming bands, and we had a show here, and just the way that it looked was really cool, and just I liked the vibe, and the idea just came together.
Nice. Well, I mean, what you've done so far is pretty incredible. The bands you've had on are amazing. We know a bunch of them. Susie Moon, Get Dead, Days and Days. You know, like you're getting some amazing bands through there. Not to mention Nightcore. I saw a bunch of those videos. Those were pretty fantastic too.
Awesome, thanks.
And where I know you're kind of going through a transition with BCS right now. Where would you like to see Bridge City Sessions, you know, down the road, like 5 years, 10 years or whatever? Like, you know, how would you like to see it evolve from
Well,
what you have?
so the location that we're at now, like it's a great location, but in a great building. But if like where we're going, if we were, you know, able to stay there long term, you know, having like a commercial storefront, so that way, like we're in a little plaza, so there's a venue, a place called Puddle Town that's like a rehearsal space, and then there's a dispensary, and then there's us, and it's all connected in this big building, which is awesome because, you know, musicians are gonna love that area. They're gonna be like venue, rehearsal space, you know. So having that is, you know, always a direction that I wanted to see us, like having that kind of exposure, because we're in an industrial alley. No one knows we're here unless they've seen our videos on YouTube and then booked a session through us, and then we give them the address. And so it's not a real public kind of, you know, business, you know. And so giving us a better location would be great. But I've always wanted us to be able to be like a venue as well, because bands can come through on tour, play a show, do a session, get shirts if they need. We can, you know, do all kinds of stuff, take pictures. And so there's just everything that a musician needs kind of all in one spot. But at our current location, there's only one fire exit. And so in the way that it's built is just not quite what we would want for a venue. We have shows here. We're having a show here tomorrow. We have shows all the time, but it's one of those things that like the fire marshal could be like, oh, you only have one fire exit and there's too many people here. But it's pretty hidden, so we haven't been messed with for a long time. But turning the new spot into a venue as well has always been kind of like the dream, to like be able to do it all in one spot. And you know, so
Yeah, that'd be rad as hell, man.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
So with
So-
I'll two-prong my question. Number one, you know, you've had a lot of like we said, we've had a lot of names come through, and I think, in my opinion, it's been a really good bouncing off point for a lot of artists. You know, you watch them come through Bridge City Sessions, and then 6 months later, they're playing big shows all over the place. And so to me, that's really cool. Who would be part one? Who would be the most fun or the best time you've had with a band coming through and playing and doing their thing in a session?
Well, I feel like there's been so many sessions that I've looked forward to. So when I meet them and get to have that experience with a band that like, you know, Such Gold or, you know, La Armada, like there's bands that I've known and seen around, but once you get that chance to have that session, then you just kind of like build this like experience and this friendship with the band. And you know, I would say like probably the funnest time is the day of the Get Dead session. We had Pairs, Get Dead, Direct Hit all in the same day.
Wow.
And they were all here at the same time. I think two of the bands were on tour together. And then another band was just in town. So I want to say Pairs and Direct Hit were on tour together, and then Get Dead was in town the same day. And we just invited them all to the studio and was able to do all three sessions. And then for the Direct Hit song, Promised Land, they were all singing together like in the background and like dancing and kind of just being wild because they're all wild. But yeah, love Pairs. Get Dead are good friends of mine. I've known them for many years. And yeah, Direct Hit, it was awesome. The drummer for Direct Hit on that tour was the drummer from All American Rejects.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah,
Wow.
so he was filling in for that tour.
Very cool. So part two then, and no reflection on the band whatsoever, but which session just totally fell apart? Like what was like nightmare from the beginning to end? Did you have any that have ever had like just, oh my God, I can't believe we're having so many problems all at once?
Well, there's sessions that take a long time because, you know, sometimes bands make mistakes or there's technical difficulties. But I would say like the worst thing that happens for a session is something happens and either the band has to, a member of the band has been, you know, did something to get called out, so we have to pull the session, or you know, something happened with audio and for some reason we can't use it, or the band just doesn't like their performance. There's just like so many things like that that are more like after we've filmed everything, after we've edited it, after we've like gone through all this post-production and the time to do it all, you know. And yeah, the latest time that something like that happened really sucked. This band Spider, they're on Epitaph, and they came in and they did their 4 songs. And when our engineer went back to look at the audio, only 1 song out of those 4. We do 2 takes of each song, and there's 1 song, 2 takes. And, you know, like they came out here specifically to do this. And so it was just like a huge bummer because we'll have that 1 song to put out in the next week or so, but you know, refund them, you know, go through all that just to, you know, lose stuff. So it's the worst.
Yeah, we're no strangers to that. Our very first interview, we had Milo from the Descendants, and we lost the entire interview, just technical difficulties. The entire interview went down the toilet, and he was gracious enough to come back and do it again. So it was it worked out in the end. But yeah, no, we're no strangers to data loss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what a first episode.
Right? Yeah, it kicked us
Yeah.
off pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Nice.
Milo
Yeah.
for you. Milo.
Class act all the way through.
I love listening to him talk. I've listened to him on a couple of podcasts, and it's just it's so interesting to just hear the history and listen to him talk about stuff.
We had him on the board. He was talking science. He was talking music. He was talking wiener schnitzel and farts. I mean, he was like all over the board, and it was a blast. And we did it twice. It was even more fun.
Yeah, it was like a conversational grab bag with Milo. Is like just anything and everything, and I could listen to the man talk for days because he's that engaging and that it's that cool.
And we tell everybody 45 minutes to an hour or so for an interview, and I think 2 hours, 20 minutes or something with Milo.
Well, yeah, you don't want to stop that. That's too important.
Don't go, Milo. Yeah. Don't go to college yet.
Yeah,
Larry talked.
It was all part 2 to that someday. I guarantee it.
It was all quality.
So I got a fun little question here for you, Nick. Being that we're mid-October, I'm personally a horror fan. I've been homesick for the past 2 days, so I've binged some Friday the 13th, and I'm curious, what's your favorite scary movie, man? And like, are you more of a gore kind of guy or a camp kind of guy or comedy? Like, let's have fun with it. We're in fucking October. We're coming down to the season.
I watch horror movies like all year long, so I definitely don't just binge in October, but I can appreciate so many different horror movies in different stages of like production and stuff, but like I would say what is it, Army of the Dead was
Army of Darkness?
No, it was what was it?
Was it that new Zack Snyder one that was on Netflix?
Yeah. That I'm talking about that. Like that's kind of stuff like Dawn of the Dead. That was it's actually kind of believable and scary, and it kind of gives you more of that kind of adrenaline. Especially they're like so fast and but I mean I love a lot of different horror movies. Like when I was growing up, I think Child's Play was one of my like that used to creep me out. Like when I was I would like I could not go somewhere with stairs without freaking out, like thinking something was going to grab my feet or or like just going in a basement. I would like go in a basement super quick and then run back up. Like I would just
same here.
Yeah.
Nick, did you ever see those My Buddy dolls that they used to make?
Right.
They make like the replica of the Chucky doll. Is that what you're talking about?
It was. I think Chucky was kind of based on a My Buddy doll because it was like the same, like almost same dimensions and stuff. But my friend had one of those.
Wherever I go,
I didn't even know that.
My buddy and me.
He had one of those, and Child's Play came out, and I refused to go downstairs into his fucking bedroom because that fucking thing was down there. I was like, put it in the closet, lock that thing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm not coming down. Fuck that. Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
I hate dolls in general.
There's probably a few other horror movies that I liked growing up, but I started going through all the Resident Evil movies, and I'm always looking for like the next newest thing that is worth watching, like something that's just well done. Because I've gone back and revisited some oldies, and it's like sometimes it's just so bad with like the makeup and stuff like that it's just like you just laugh at it. It's like it's not scary.
That's why I've been binging, is just for the laughs, because I'm watching young Corey Feldman in Friday the 13th part 3, and I'm like or 4, and I'm like what the fuck, man? Like first of all, I didn't even realize he was in it, because back in the day, like he wasn't who he was, and yeah,
I don't know. He might be more scary these days. I don't
Oh,
know.
God,
probably.
yes.
Probably.
But has the horror influenced your music at all, Nick? Like in the songs you write and the music you play and stuff, did the horror step in?
You know, I think I wouldn't say horror like influenced my music, but we all kind of like, you know, have an aesthetic that, you know, punk and kind of that like darker, you know, look to you, you know, like aesthetically it all kind of ties into each other. But I don't I can't say particularly. It's mostly just like fast melodic punk is what has inspired me to write music. Like all my favorite bands are just super technical and just really well done, like Propaganda, Wilhelm Scream, you know, stuff like that. Like I feel like those bands influence me the most.
So Nick, question one. Is there, you know, a lot of what we do and a lot of our ethos is in you know, helping others and helping the community and doing what we can. Is there a cause or some kind of like social issue that you're particularly fond of that you'd like everybody to know about?
I mean, I've just been kind of following with what's going on with, you know, what's going on in politics, and you know, I try to stay away from the news as much as possible. But you know, the women's rights were something that, you know, everybody was like, you know, really invested in trying to support. And you know, other than that, you know, I can't think of another cause right now that.
Are there any like nonprofits or organizations up in the Portland area that you would recommend?
Yeah, I think this place called Open Signal, they have a place up the street that does video production and TV and kind of offers classes, and they're a good place to rent video gear and lights, and but yeah.
Cool.
With the rules of the pit, it's kind of more of an ethos than rules. It's kind of more of rules of life, if anything. So, you know, we've got the rule of the pit. If somebody falls, you pick them up. If you were to add a rule to the rules of the pit, what would a rule of yours be?
One of my main things that always kind of bothers me when I go to shows is, you know, if I'm at a show like with my wife or, you know, somebody that is smaller, you know, there's these people that are just going crazy, and you spend most of your show trying to protect them.
Mhm.
And it just, I feel like if people were a little more, you know, courteous to the other people watching, especially kids or, you know,
Right.
women, to just, you know, because every time we have to go somewhere else, so you know, she can see, or like somebody's not smashing into her.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
I mean,
Read the fucking room, people.
yeah,
Happened
yeah,
last
that's-
night.
yeah, it's like, also, you know, I understand people's way of moshing and swinging their arms, or like style dancing or whatever you want to call it. You know, it just, that shit just it's so dangerous for somebody to be like inches from you and just swinging their arms as hard as they can, and it's just kind of like
With their
asking for
head down the
Yeah.
entire time.
Get
yeah,
knocked
it's just,
the fuck out.
yeah, it's, I love the hardcore scene. I love the energy. It's just, I don't know, just be a little safer around people that are not gonna, you know, be doing too well after a huge, you know, punch to the face. So
Yeah. Churchy, you got the last one?
Yeah. Are there for people that are experienced with listening to music and maybe people that aren't? I'm not really sure how I'm wanting to phrase this, but I'll get to the point, Nick. Are there any bands that you're listening to that like they could be old bands that maybe we all know of, or maybe some new guys on the scene? What are you listening to? Like, you got 2 bands you can recommend to us to give a listen to?
Yeah. There's this band called Cigar that they put out a CD in the late 90s and just kind of would play festivals, but kind of dropped off as far as like doing stuff and putting out content. They kind of dropped off, and they came and did a session with us a couple years ago, and then they just dropped their new record. And that is a band that I'm definitely listening to. Their new record is amazing, and they still have the same energy. They even expanded their songwriting. I feel like it's a little more melodic and, you know, just a little more polished. So
The bass on that first single they released, oh my god, it was insane. That bass player is fucking insane. Holy shit.
yeah, and well, their bass player from the first record is different from their second one. They got a new bass player, but man, they both rip, and the second guy is just so good. But another band that I'm listening to, I mean, I'm really digging the new Wilhelm Scream. I keep putting that on rotation. But I listen to a lot of this Behind the Bastards podcast. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. But I'm just going to plug that real quick because it's just a really good podcast. This guy, Robert Evans, he's a really good host. It's really funny. Talks about a lot of the worst people in history and tells their stories in depth. And he has people on and they have interviews, and it's really interesting. There's a lot of just shit and about our history that, like, the way he lays it out, it's just really interesting to listen to, and I like a lot of his guests. So, but yeah, when I'm not listening to music, I listen to that like every week.
Very cool.
Nice. I appreciate the answer. Thank you. I'll check
All
that
right.
out.
So take the promo spot, Nick, just for here. How can we help Bridge City Sessions get into that spot in the way that you want it? Where can we go, and what can we do to help out?
Well, our biggest hurdle to climb to move from one location to the other is just all the expenses that come with it, because we have to pay, you know, first, last deposits, building construction costs. You know, we have to do flooring, we have to do all these things to get it ready to be, you know, a nice studio like how we have. And so we have a GoFundMe. I believe it's gofundme.com/help save our studio. That's like that's the link. But whenever this is posted, we can post the link there too. But
Cool.
it's we're trying to raise money, and we have till the end of October to be out of here, and that's a whole lot of, you know, figuring out, like, in a 2-week period.
Very cool. We'll definitely put some links out there and do everything that we can to help promote. Yep.
Well, Nick, it's been a pleasure, as I'm sure my fellow brothers would definitely agree. You know, we will definitely do what we can to help out Bridge City Sessions, and you know, get you moved and get you up and running again. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you for having me and taking the interest and the time to have this conversation and to help promote, you know, what we're doing. And we need all the help we can get. So this actually came at a good time, so we can all just share this and raise the money we need and get in there.
Very
So,
cool. Very cool. Let's do it. All right. Well, thanks again, Nick. We appreciate having you on.
thank you. All right. We'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate
Thanks,
your
Nick.
time. Thank you very
All
much.
right. Cheers, brother.